back with Jordan Merrick. Got some questions. How did you land on the album title for Night Music?
It was actually really funny, or funny to me at least. I was doing some demo recordings, and
Mm.
one of my mates brought his camera along, and we were just taking photos. And I sort of was like, "What should I name the photo group?" And I was like, "Oh, a little bit of night music as a play of the Mozart song."
Ah,
And it sort of stuck with me, just that sort of that one liner, and I sort of thought that would be a really cool concept for an album, sort of like reimagining the night music theme.
mm.
And I really loved like with Mozart and his music and classical in general and how it sort of does a lot of storytelling without words, and that's such an incredible thing to do. And I sort of wanted to play
Yeah.
on that, but my own style and how I can sort of convey the like you're alone at night. What do you do? What do you think? How do you feel?
Mm.
From one night to the next. So that's sort of where it all sort of spawned from, and just sort of got a bit crazy and carried on from there.
Yeah. And around when in the process did you land on that name? It was pretty early on.
Yeah, well before, to be honest, well
Oh,
before I even started recording the demos.
gee.
Yeah, it was just sort of really early, and it just sort of really stuck with me. And it sort of, when I had that idea, it was sort of similar with the first two EPs. It was similar. I sort of, when I had the name, I knew what songs I would want to have on it and the style I
Mm.
wanted. So it's sort of like, it's weird. It's actually a bit of a strange process, isn't it? Having the name first, and then sort of like, what songs do I want to
Yeah.
have on this name. But yeah, it sort of carried on from there. I had the name very early, and it sort of just took a note of it. And then when I started writing the music, I sort of knew which songs would fit the vibe I really wanted to go
Mm.
for the album.
And how was recording Night Music? Was it I'm guessing it was fairly different from recording the first two EPs?
Yeah, it was very different. I did a lot of pre-production in my little bedroom studio, sort of winging it all of the time because
Okay.
I had no clue what I was doing. To be perfectly honest, just hitting record and hoping for the best. But yeah, working with Stephen Schramm, he was really really great to collaborate with, and because obviously he produced the album, and it was really really great in terms of bringing his ideas and also taking my ideas seriously, and really working out a way of bringing it to life,
Mm.
which is a lot harder than it ever seems. Like this, how the song sounds in your head and how it records can be completely different. Um, but it was very consistent with sort of what I was really hoping to go for with the album. I was very lucky in that regard.
Mm. And so he was very high on your list to get in as a producer?
He was number one.
Yeah. How
Yeah, I
come?
sort of, I just, yeah. So I was, I just had the group of songs that I wanted to record and knew the vibe I wanted to go for, and basically just sat down and listened to so many different new releases by Australian artists, and then stumbled upon some guy named Paul Kelly, some new artist, and yeah, loved the new album. This was back in 2007, 18. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, nearly got my years wrong. And I was like, oh, who has done this album? Because it's just so well recorded, and
Mm.
I love the vision of it, and it just felt a bit different to some of Paul Kelly's other earlier stuff, and I really loved the new sound he had going for him. And yeah, that's where I found Stephen Tram, and
Okay.
yeah, just sent him an email with the whole bunch of demos that I'd done at home, and I said, look, these are what I got, and I'd really like to bring them to life, and wanted to work with him,
Mm.
and thankfully he was keen. I was very lucky.
Yeah. Wow. And what were the first tracks written for this album?
The first two tracks, so I wrote introduction. I actually wrote the music to it first,
Mm.
and I just recorded it into my phone. That would have been early 2017. And then I played one of the shows for Songs from House Arrest, and I was flying home, and the plane was delayed about 5 hours.
Mm.
So I was sitting in the airport. I thought I may as well try to be productive. So I was going through some old phone recordings, just because often I just record random songs that I'm just like writing on the fly.
Yeah.
And I found that piano track, and yeah, just sort of played it on repeat and just wrote the lyrics to it at the airport. And yeah, so that was around Songs from House Arrest, and Record Time was around then too. Record Time was actually
Mm.
very close to being on that EP, but it just didn't fit.
On songs from House Arrest.
Yeah, it was all around that time. I
Okay.
really wanted to record it, but I really wanted to put a bit more thought into how to produce it,
Mm.
and I didn't really feel confident in it at the time, so I sort of just left it for the time being.
Did record time change quite a bit for the album?
Funnily enough, it didn't. I think back then, because I was still relatively new to how to approach a recording and I hadn't done any real recordings myself, I sort of overthought it a lot. So when I...
As you do.
Yeah, so when I was working on the demo, I had so much going on in it. I was like, this just sounds so bad. So stripped it back to acoustic and then did bass and then sort of had a piano idea and a slide idea. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm just going to keep it simple. And then when we did it in the studio, it was exactly that. And then the piano part was a lot more present in the final version than it was in my little demo because I'm pretty bad at piano. So that's probably the main reason why. But it actually turned out really, really how I was hoping it to in the end. So I was very lucky that trial and error ended up working.
Yeah. And the track obviously features the gorgeous vocals of Emma.
It does.
Was that always the plan from writing the demo?
Definitely. When I'd first moved to Brisbane back in 2014, I sort of, because I didn't start really gigging until 2015. And one of the first bands I saw was Malo Zima, which is Amala's old band.
Okay.
Maybe old band now. And just hearing her sing, I was just floored. I was like, wow, what a powerhouse.
Yep.
And then going to hear her, because she's one of those vocalists who's just so versatile in the style she can do. And I'd always wanted to do a song with her when I wrote it, and I sort of had that female harmony in mind. And there was only one name I wanted to work with, so thankfully she said yes.
Of course. And were there many tracks written for this album that didn't quite make the cut?
I think there was only 2, to be honest. A lot of it fell together really well because when I sort of sat down to put the album together and do like a rough draft of the songs, pretty much everything bar 2 stayed on it. And one I took off it just because genre-wise and vibe-wise just didn't fit at all. I think it was pretty much when I sort of went, I want it to be the theme of like night music. It was a song about a cowboy, so it really did not fit.
Okay.
The other one did, but it was sort of a song that I would really love to record one day, but it just wasn't. I didn't feel really prepared enough to do it. I really wanted to put a bit more thought into the production side, and I wrote the toll, and I was like, well, I want the toll on the album, and I was least prepared for the other song, so it was an easy choice in the end.
For sure. And little curveball question is, looking back at those EPs, is there a personal favorite that you're most proud of?
As in song or
song? Yeah.
I think Untitled One has to be.
That's the obvious one.
Actually, you know what? I will go a different one.
Okay.
I'll go
Wonderful song if you haven't heard it.
Thank you. I love that song for a different reason. I think it's because that song at the time, I just felt I was really proud of it because it was it was just so simple and it really didn't fit. I just wanted to put it out. I didn't really think anything about it being on the radio. I didn't think it would really have any radio possibilities. But it was, it ended up getting a bit of traction, and it was it was a song that really represented who I was at the time. And it was really great to put that song out. But I would say Birdman is my curveball selection.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really grown on me over the years. It was like a last minute addition to the EP. And then since then, I think I play it. It's one of my more popular songs live, and I just love playing it live. It's just so much fun, especially with the band.
Yeah. Do you play Kiss or Kill live?
I haven't played that in ages, to be honest.
That's one of my favorites from the
I love that song. It's just hard to fit it in sometimes, especially with the new stuff.
True.
But it's a good one. It's a bit long, so it's hard to fit in. But,
fair enough.
Yeah, glad you like it.
And lastly, on night music, before we get into the track by track and playing Sailing, if you only had a few words to describe the album, which few words would you use?
Oh, you really put me on the spot. On the spot. So how many words do I get to use?
You can have it as many as
I want.
As you want,
Rompy, stompy, moody blues. I'll go with.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, we're going to be hearing it very soon in about 2-ish minutes. So if you agree, let us know.
That could be completely accurate or completely false and misleading to the listeners. So
find out.
Yeah, stay tuned to find out. It's a cliffhanger.
We're all about advertising for what's on the upcoming show. So I appreciate it. This is Sailing from Jordan Merrick. We'll be right back. When you guys hear the album, let us know what your few words are, as long as they're lovely. This is Sailing, Jordan Merrick. You're listening to Emerge on 1197 AM, digital radio and phoenixradio.com.au. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that was Salem by Jordan Merrick. And now moving on to the night music track by track. First two songs are Introduction, which we covered a bit earlier, and Dangerously Sincere. Jordan, what can you tell us about the tracks?
Well, Introduction sort of, as I was touching on before, I wrote it at the airport, but I'd always liked the idea of having an introduction track for the album, and I really was sort of stuck on whether I wanted to have words to it or not.
Mm.
And I sort of, I forgot about the piano piece that I'd written. And then, I just sort of, when I had the time to listen back to it, and I thought I'd sort of treat it like a direct, sort of like direct communication to the listener. So it's like addressing them directly.
Mm.
And I sort of just wanted to set it up to be sort of, what do you expect, the unexpected sort of thing. Especially when you lead into Dangerously Sincere, because obviously Introduction's this dark, Nick Cavey piano piece, and then it leads into a completely different style.
Oh, yeah, some smooth bass.
Yeah, some very smooth bass, and that's sort of I sort of almost want it to be like a bit of a red herring into Dangerously Sincere.
Okay,
troll the audience, if you will.
Of course, we're all about that.
Yeah, all about the trolling. That's what musicians do.
Yeah.
And then Dangerously Sincere was it's a bit funny because it's more of a poem than it is a real song, because the lyrics are a bit all over the place. Sort of intertwines a whole bunch of different sort of story arcs of romance and wanting and lust, and then a bit of vampires, vampires courting the world, and then of course there's a bit of political talk too about our good friend Rocket Man. So it's just it's a bit of a mix of stories and sort of it sort of carries through the music, and I just sort of really like the idea of just intertwining stories and just sort of leaving the poetry as really just purely that. It doesn't have to really have a full meaning to the song.
Yeah.
It can just be about, the different lines of story, the different sort of, I suppose, impact words, and then just letting the music do what it does. And it's a bit of a slow burner, builds up to that big sort of crescendo, and then comes right back down. Yeah, so it's sort of Dangerously Sincere.
Ooh. This is the first tracks from Jordan Merrick's debut album, Night Music. This is Introduction and Dangerously Sincere. You're listening to Emerge.
I'm not fighting low. I'm getting tired, more and more low. Well, who's that calling out my name? You're dressed in drag, but you're twice as sane.
And that was Dangerously Sincere from Jordan Merrick, obviously featuring the wonderful vocals of Emila, who he is currently on a tour with.
Yes, I
Coming
am.
up now. Oh, yeah. Coming up now, we've got Low Country and Record Time. Low Country, obviously the lead single. What have you got to say about these tracks?
Yeah, well, Low Country was a really fun one. I remember writing it because I got the weird idea to write it actually watching one of those House Hunters International shows.
Really?
Where do you find your inspiration from, they say. But no, I was watching the show, and there was an episode about part of America, and they were referring to it as the Low Country. And that's it really just sparked my interest, that whole area. So I sort of started researching it, and then I sort of was like, I'm just going to let the visuals sort of build the story. And then it sort of from there built into like a story of temptation and desire. And I didn't want it to be just that trademark sort of, I want to date you type song. So it's not really, I sort of wanted to write it in a different sort of way. I mean, a lot of the times when you're writing lyrics, you just go with it. Whatever comes to your mind, you just write it. I've always it's a bit like a beatnik style. You just, whatever you think of, you write and you keep. So I've always believed that you should just, whatever you're thinking at the time, stick with it and go with go with your guns, and yeah, sort of carried on from there into like a song about temptation and sort of presenting temptation in a more, I suppose, a more appealing way. Because obviously temptation can be a really bad thing, especially when it comes to, say, gambling, addiction, anything, any sort of addiction. And I sort of wanted to present it in a way of how it looks to people, who are addicted, because it doesn't look bad to them. That's why
sure.
it's so desirable. They want to go back and get that next fix, or whether it's anything, and that's sort of where it carried on from. Yeah. So then following that, yeah, Record Time was the next track, and yeah, it's the second song on the album with Amala, which she absolutely kills as well. She does a great job. It's probably one of the more personal songs on the album, because the album is very sort of fiction driven, and sort of it's more the songs are more sort of about emotion versus about real life events. But Record Time sort of, it's not fully sort of biopicky, if you will, but it sort of is like back before I moved to Brisbane, going through a breakup, and whenever you've been in a relationship that's been a bit turbulent, you learn about yourself. You also learn sometimes that you don't really know yourself all that well, and in a way, it was a song that sort of summed up my journey from finishing in that relationship to moving to Brisbane to start a new life for myself, rediscovering myself, and especially in sort of the last two verses where it sort of says, if you hear her say, or if I hear you say, it's more speaking to your former self in a way. Okay. Or at least it was for me. So it was very therapeutic in that sense, sort of being able to really reflect on what I'd sort of moved on from, the person who I was, didn't know I was, and then became. Yeah, so it was one of the more personal songs on the album.
Was it one of the toughest to write, or did it come together pretty easily?
It's weird because it already that all happened in late 2013, early 2014.
True.
So I couldn't really write about it back then. I years later wrote the song, and it was very reflective, and it wasn't really hard to write. It was actually nice to write in a way because I'd changed so much as a person. And it was nice to write to sort of reflect on what I'd sort of, how I'd grown up and how I'd sort of grown into the person I am. Yeah, so it was nice. Yeah.
Speaking of nice, what a segue. It's the next two tracks off Night Music by Jordan Merrick. This is Low Country and Record Time.
Life ain't what you think, life is what you do. And all I wanna do is be close to you. So I made my way to Brisbane, where the rosewood meets the pines. A life of learning wisdom that never truly arrives.
And that was track 4, Record Time, off Night Music. Coming on to 5 and 6 now. This is Dark Night, one of the tracks Jordan performed acoustically, 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah, it was
potentially.
Its radio debut.
Yeah. Ooh.
Exclusive to Emerge.
Ooh. And if you want to see that, I strongly recommend having a look after the show. Make sure it's after, though.
Not now. Stop clicking.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Come on, guys. That's going to be... I've posted that link with the show preview. the show playlist, which should be up in about 10-ish minutes. But yeah, Dark Night. What can you tell us about the tune?
That was probably the most fitting song in the Night Music spectrum, hence the name. Right. But it was sort of the way I look at the lyrics in the song, how I sort of see it. Actually, there's 2 parts to this story I'll tell. Sort of when I wrote it, how I saw it was like, imagine you're like sitting in a car, pitch black, like midnight, no other cars on the road. You're driving along, but the light's red, and you're just sitting at the lights waiting alone. And you're just thinking, you're alone, what do you do but think? And I was just imagining the pensive thoughts, and then just imagining the sounds of the city. Like, you hear the sirens in the distance, and you hear the wind, and you hear the crazy possums in the trees, because, Australia's full of crazy possums. But But yeah, I really wanted to capture that sort of vibe, and lyrically, it's a very story driven of sort of scenes from parts of the city at midnight, basically. And then I took it into the studio, and Stephen Schramm said, "So this is about Batman," and I was like, "What?" It's like Dark Knight, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is the perfect Batman
Maybe it
song."
is.
And then it basically became a song about Batman. So
Oh my
basically, you
God.
can apply it to those two different styles.
Which Batman?
Christian Bale, the only Batman, really. Nah, that's
Well-
not to discredit Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty keen for the next one, but
Yeah,
this is a local music show, so
yeah.
we'll move on from Batman.
Yeah, and then the toll, brings back the pace of the album, and it's it's a very sort of upbeat, I suppose, darker country folk blues song. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
But no, I was very fortunate when I was writing it. Like literally, I got the first verse and the chorus written, and I thought, I really want to do this with Leone Kingdom. I really, really hope this song is good, and I hope she wants to sing it, because we'd met through Listen Up Music, where I've done some judging, and she was actually she won the last year's songwriting competition that they do. They're amazing. They do great work for mental health in the music industry. So yeah, we did. So we met through there, and then she was really keen to do the track, and I was very fortunate because she's an incredible, incredible singer. And the song itself is just it's about sort of like the I suppose the differing views of love, and when you meet someone and you're not sure how they feel, and you have that real lust when you meet someone, the honeymoon period, or when you just really want to be with them all the time, and you have that feeling, but you wonder, how do they feel?
Yeah.
So I sort of wanted to really use that to capture both sides.
Okay.
And the emotional roller coaster and the toll. That's sort of where we always pay our toll. Is sort of like, when you feel love can give you the happiest of happies, and the most pain you've ever felt, worse than any injury.
Yeah.
So I sort of wanted it to really capture those two sides of the coin, if you will.
And was it always your intention to have such a? I think the verses and the choruses and the chorus are quite different. At least for me, was that always your intention to have that juxtaposition?
To be 100% honest, no. So I actually remember quite well when I was writing it. I wrote the verse and I was like, this is a really cool verse. Now, what could be the chorus? I have no clue. So I was just playing around with some melodies, and I sort of got the chorus going really slow, and then I was like, nah, I want to speed it up. And then I sped it up a bit. Then I took it to the studio, and Stephen Schramm was like, let's speed it up even more. And so the chords itself, and I really like the simplicity of the chorus chords. It's really just adding a major to the verse chords, and it changes it completely. And I just love that effect, and that's why I sort of stuck with it, is just adding that one extra major, and then there's a second major in there too, like just for a second. But it just sort of just came together, just trial and error, finding the chords, and sort of it's one of those things. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle when you're writing a song. You just try so many different pieces, and eventually you find the chord, and you're like, yeah, finally. I've only tried it 10 times before, but then you finally get back to it, and you're like, yeah, wow, that actually fits. Yeah, so that's sort of the toll.
Wonderful. This is Dark Night and the Toll from Night Music.
See me through to the end of the night. Let it loose. It's tied like a noose. My mind, it's flying. If you could spare a thought, I'd feel lonelier than before with the wind around my neck. I breathe in your intellect. Hey, who am I to know? Should I stay or should I go? It matters not. For in the end.
And that was the Toll from Jordan Merrick's Night Music. It's also featuring the vocals of Leone Kingdom, who is going to be supporting Jordan and Emma at their co-launch at Brisbane at Black Bear Lodge on the 28th of November.
Yeah.
I'll see you there.
I can't wait for that one. It was one thing to perform with them on the album, and it's completely another thing altogether, playing with them live and being
Mm.
able to hopefully do those songs live together, which would be really exciting.
God, I hope so, man.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, they're fantastic, and I'm very grateful to have worked with them.
Mm. Next up, we got A European Love Song, which is another track Jordan recorded. It's another song that's available on our Facebook page at Emerge Radio Show. After European Love Song comes up, Six Red Chairs. Oh, also, I got an apology for you, Jordan,
Oh,
because I noticed when I was setting up the post for the playlist, I had it as A European Love Story on that video.
Yeah, I did say that.
It's right now, but I think it's going to come up as edited.
Look, it's a
apologies.
story. well, I like to look at myself as a storyteller first and foremost. You were just embracing that.
Yeah, right.
There's no need to apologize
so.
for embracing the story, and it's
just in case you were upset.
yeah. And to segue into it, it's a story. it's literally
Exactly.
it's a story. Now, European Love Song's a funny one. It was very, very heavily influenced. I was reading a lot of Ernest Hemingway, and there's actually a quote in the song. The Sun Also Rises, the book.
Okay.
Wonderful book. The thing that's great about Hemingway's writing is he depicts love and it's really weird. He depicts love and nightlife in such a unique way. It's hard to even describe, but it's very visual. It feels very real, the way Hemingway writes, and that's what I love about his work. And yeah, that's how the song sort of was born. Sort of two characters, although I sort of make my own story from it, to be honest, because the two characters, one of them loves the woman, but she hates him. So I was like, well, that's not going to work in this one. So I'll just change the story. But yeah, I just love the idea of capturing that long distance relationship in a sort of in like a phone call, essentially, because the song is like it's literally his opening line is, "My darling, she calls me at 4:45," which it's literally just a phone call, a story about the phone call. And I suppose I took it like that, and then I sort of brought in elements of, say, like Leonard Cohen, famous Blue Raincoat, and how that song's him writing a letter to his lover, and I wanted to sort of apply that sort of aspect, and that's why I sort of modeled the acoustic style off the way Cohen did his early stuff. And that's sort of how the song came together with the music, and it all sort of flowed together. There's a bit of Leonard Cohen tribute in the lyrics too. For any big Cohen fans, I'll figure it out. That's for you to figure out, listeners. So, yeah. And then moving on to Six Red Chairs, probably another very Leonard Cohen-y sort of style song. Although someone pointed out to me the other day that it has a bit of Where the Wild Roses Grow by Nick Cave, and I never thought of it like that at the time, but then I sort of thought, the vocal melody sort of does. But that song is it's a bit of it's sort of like a snapshot into a story in a way of like a woman on death row and her final thoughts, and the thoughts of like a world sort of, I suppose, like was like a post World War II type vision in my head anyways when I was writing it, of you line up on the firing squad wall and shot to death for your beliefs in a way. And it was sort of a commentary a bit on, I suppose, on equal rights for women and people in general. And it's a weird one to really express in song. And I didn't want to do it in a very literal way, because I'm not a very literal writer, if you haven't figured that one out by now. But I really wanted to express that because, I grew up in a house of women, and I'm a big believer in equal rights. And I think there's a line in the song that really, I suppose, sums it up for me is, what good's being equal if you're at the back of the line? Yeah. And, it's like, yeah, okay, you give someone equal rights, but if they're so far back, how can you help and bring that equality into truly equal? Sure. It's like if someone's poor and you give both parties $10, the rich person's still got $1 million and $10. Yeah, the poor person's now got 10. Yeah. But you've got to equal it out. And that's sort of the commentary I was sort of trying to make with the song.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is A European Love Song and Six Red Chairs, taken from Night Music. You're listening to Emerge on 1197 AM, digital radio, and phoenixradio.com.au.
And I hope it's not certain we're destined to be long lost lovers between man, earth, and sea. My darling, it's not what we thought it would be. I look to the heavens, I look to the ground. Don't bother thinking thoughts of enemies now. They'll line you up on the 8th-thread chair.
And that was 6 Red Chairs of Night Music by Jordan Merrick. Coming up now, we've got Hades and the Attic. What's there to be said about Hades and the Attic, Jordan?
Hades in the Attic is a funny one. It's sort of well, it's not a funny song. Definitely not a funny song. Don't get your hopes up. But it's a song that it came together in a really organic way. I had the chords and then just essentially just hit record. And it's one of those things, sometimes you get really lucky when you're writing music and you can hit record just to, basically write the chords and the structure and you just sing over random lyrics. And sometimes you just get lucky and you get something that you're happy with. Other times you listen back and you just wonder what you were thinking at that time. You're like, really? Is that what I've really just sung? And sometimes you sing 2 words and they meld into one and it's like a mumble. It's pretty funny, but you never ever release that.
Of course.
There for the vaults, for the bootleg editions, But the song came together and I think it was just the darkness and the somberness of the chords and then the build up in the song that sort of really drove the story that sort of came out to it, which is sort of a story about how far you're willing to go, I suppose, to be with the one you want or to achieve your goal. Because obviously, in music and in life, it's so easy to equate anything to a relationship in loss and all that stuff. But really, it applies to a lot of things. And, the whole, I'll go to the edge of the earth for someone. Well, you go to hell and back, or, what will you do? How far will you go? And that's sort of what the song is about. It's about justifying how far you're willing to go to get what you want. And for better or for worse, you can do some really bad things if you have no morals. And it's sort of, it's funny, I feel like I'm a person with pretty good morals, but I like to write about the darker side of the mind. And I think it's an interesting thing to do when you write about stuff, like murder ballads and stuff like that, etc. Because it really makes you question sometimes, like, when you're writing about it, like, how dark do you want to go? And you almost walk in the tightrope with your own morals while doing so. Obviously it's fiction, but
sure.
That's the really interesting sort of, I suppose, retrospective of writing that sort of stuff. And that's sort of how Hades was born and how it carried on.
Cool. This is track 9, Hades in the Attic. Only one song after this. Man, it's gone quick.
It has, hasn't it? Days.
This is track 9 from Jordan Merrick's Night Music. This is Hades and the Attic.
I'm okay, but are you? 2 extra nights alone with you at last.
And that was Hades in the Attic of Night Music. And now we're back with Jordan to talk about the very last song on his album. This is I Don't Belong.
Yeah, well, I Don't Belong. I suppose, like, when I was putting the album together and thinking about what I wanted to end it with. And I mean, some people, it's funny, I was speaking to a few musicians the other day and people have very different opinions on how you should end an album. Some people don't think, especially in the modern age where everyone's on Spotify and not necessarily listening to albums start to finish like they used to. But I'm sort of a traditionalist. I like to think that people who are probably listening to my music will probably be sort of maybe like me and like to listen from start to finish. I could be completely wrong, so apologies if I've just assumed anything about any of you. My bad. But I really want to go out with a bang, and it's actually really funny. This is where a song that Stephen Schramm, who produced the album, really, really came to play, because the percussion on it is just insane. Like, we used everything from a box of matches to I don't know what the instrument's called. It's like a wooden version of a xylophone. I'm not exactly sure what it's called.
Okay.
So we used that. Box of matches, regular percussion, shaker, some. I don't know if it made it into the final cut, but we also filled a container full of rocks.
Okay.
Yeah, we went a bit crazy on it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those songs that when I brought it to the studio, it was very mellow. It was almost like a blues jazz song.
Wow.
I almost thought, do I want any horn instruments in it?
Mm.
Obviously, we ended up going with that big roaring, distorted. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. I'm so bad with anything musically termed. Like I know guitar,
Oh, dude, me
guitar
too.
and bass.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we went a bit crazy with it, and it just came to life. It really did in the studio. It was one of those really great moments seeing it come together, and just seeing it grow and develop in front of our eyes. Like even before we went to mix the tracks, it just came to life, something fierce, and it was so much fun. And lyrically, lyrically it was a really I suppose what's the word I'm trying to think? It was very therapeutic. That's the word. I was on the way to work, and I was at the train station in work attire, surrounded with people in suits, and it was a Monday morning. And any musician will know this, and anyone I think will know this. Some days you look around and think, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this life? This is not what I want to do. This is not where I want to be. And I was having one of those moments, a bit of millennial melodrama, and I sort of had this. It's sometimes with music it can be a fleeting thought that is the melody, and that you want to stick with it. And I just had the melody sort of come to me a bit. Not so much the do do do, none of that, just the lyrical melody, and really, I wrote it sitting waiting for the train. I think I had it done in 5 or 6 minutes.
Jeez.
And I think lyrically, it's probably my favorite lyrics that I've ever written. I just think I love I suppose it's a very visual song, at least for me. Like obviously it's different for everybody, but for me it's very visual, and I just think in terms of how it rhymes and flows, I really I love how it's all balanced out, and I'm really happy with it, and that's sort of why I really wanted that to be the finale. I wanted it to be a finale that's a bit more upbeat, that is sort of packs a real punch, and sort of like, I suppose if you look at the album as a whole, it starts off with a very somber piano, goes into the sort of dangerously sincere groove, and it just sort of grows and forms, and then you've come through the night, the dawn is here, and it's just a punch in the face, in a good way, a good little nudge.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how it sort of came together, and it really formed a life of its own in the studio, more than I ever expected it would.
Yeah, it sounds like it would have been a tough song to mix.
I did not envy Stephen Schramm's job for that one. It would have been very, very hard.
Yeah. This is the closing track from Jordan Merrick's Night Music. This is I Don't Belong.
The more that I know, the more I fade away. Only God knows where I'm going, if He knows anything at all. And I'm drunk in hopes and dreams in a world I don't belong.
And that was I Don't Belong by Jordan Merrick. That's the last song taken from Night Music. If you want to listen to that again, I completely understand. You can purchase that album or stream it or download it off jordanmerrick.bandcamp.com. There are glorious CDs out. I've got a copy right next to me. I'm going to keep it close at all times.
And you can pirate it too if you want.
Oh, don't do that.
Nah, if you pirate it, you have to share it with your family at least.
Yeah, of course.
Just,
Been an absolute gem having you back in, Jordan.
It's been fantastic. It's been great being on the show with you, live on the air.
Oh,
Unpredictable.
Look, always, man. You got to keep people on their toes.
Definitely.
Gotta. But thank you so much.
No,
for
thank you
coming
so
in,
much
man.
for having me. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to all the listeners for checking out Night Music. And if you enjoyed it, let me know what you thought. Drop us a comment on either the Emerge page or my own, and I'll take any feedback, good, bad, and ugly.
Ooh.
Especially ugly.